Hey everyone, welcome to Max Programming, and in today's video we are going to build a Discord bot which gives you facts on numbers. So if you input any number, if you tell the bot any number, it will give you the fact of that number. If you give it any year, it's going to give you a fact for the year. It will also give you mathematical facts for numbers, and we'll be using an API for that. If you don't know, and I want to say that this video is sponsored by Rapid API. Rapid API is an API hub which has a lot of APIs on their website. You can check out Rapid API from the link in the description below. As you can see, they have a lot of APIs and it's like a Play Store to all the APIs. So the API we are going to use is the Numbers API, and it's totally free. You can see that there is no pricing tab, so it's totally free. You can make any amount of requests you want. You can make infinite amount of requests there. So this free API is what we are going to use. You can find out some free APIs, some paid APIs from Rapid API, and it's all up to you. And the link is in the description below. Check that out. So this is the API. I'll put this link in the description below as well, so you can check out this Numbers API. Rapid API has a really great API tester right over here which tests the API. So what I'm going to do is, as you can see, we have a bunch of data here. So right over here we are at get year fact, and it's 1492. If I was to test endpoint, as you can see, we get the results as, you know, the fact is what we get here, and then you also get the date, you also get the number and the type. So we can do the same thing with the get trivia fact. Now if I was to test endpoint now, as you can see, we've got the trivia fact, and we can also get the random fact, math fact. And if I was to test endpoint here, it gives you the mathematical fact of that number. So we have everything set up, but we are only gonna use three endpoints: the year, math and trivia. Okay, the trivia will be the normal fact, math will be the math fact, and year will be the year fact. We are not going to use the others like the date and random fact. So let's start by building the Discord application. So first things first, you will need to go to the Discord developer portal, which is basically discord.com/developers/applications. If you haven't created any bot before, you're not going to see anything right over here like I see. So you can just click on new application and you can give your application a name. So the name we are going to give to the application is number fact bot. Okay, let's create the application, and as you can see, the application is created. And now let's go to bot right over here, and as you can see, we've got build a bot. So let's add bot to the application. Yes, do it. And you've got number fact bot. You can also add an icon here, but we're not going to do it for this tutorial, so let's keep going. Now what you can do now is go ahead, and that's our bot. That's the application is made now. And now we're going to go ahead and open up the terminal, and we're going to create the Node.js application, because we will be using Node.js in this video. So I'm in my desired folder right over here in the terminal itself, and now let's create the Node application. Now there is a prerequisite. You will need that. The prerequisite is that you will need Node.js version 16.8 to be installed, the latest version of Node.js, the latest bleeding edge version. And that's because Discord.js, the library we are going to use, do need that, because it uses the latest JavaScript features which are not available in the current stable version of Node.js. So that's why you will need Node.js version 16.8. You can use the version 16.8 or 16.9, whichever you like. I'll use 16.8 because I have that installed on my machine, but you cannot use the LTS version because that still doesn't work with Discord.js. So you can get that set up, or you can even use something like some version manager like NVM. I'm not going to go in deep into that, but let's just get started with the app. So right over here let's just go ahead and create a folder. So I'm gonna md, I'm gonna call this number fact bot, and then I'm gonna cd into the number fact bot. Simple. Now right over here we are going to open that up in Visual Studio Code. That's as simple as that, right? So let's close the terminal. Let's bring Visual Studio Code here and let's close the terminal. And right over here I'm going to open up the integrated terminal in VS Code, and I hope now you can see everything properly. So right over here let's just say npm init-y, because we are initializing a Node.js project, so we just say npm init-y. So let's go into the package.json. As you can see, we have our package.json set up. Now the first thing I will need to edit right over here is the type to be module. Now type module, we are adding this because we want to use import in our JavaScript files. We don't want to use common.js require that we had to use earlier. So we can add type module, and there's no problem with that because we are using the latest version of Node.js and anyone has to use the latest version. So that's one thing. And the second thing is in the scripts. We'll add the def script, which will be basically nodemon, okay, because we add nodemon and the main file is index.js, so we don't need to add anything after that because we're going to create the index.js file now. And we are going to add the start script, which will be node index.js, and that's all with the package.json. Now let's go on to installing all the dependencies. So I'll use npm, so I'll say npm I, and then we'll need discord.js and .env. So these are the two dependencies we'll need. So let's hit enter to install them. Now while they're getting installed, let's create the index.js file in our project right over here, and we have nothing inside of the file. Let's close that. And as you can see, when the dependencies got installed, they are listed right over here in the package.json. Now we'll need another dev dependency, which is nodemon. For someone who is not using, for someone who did not install it globally, will be using it. So I'll just say npm I and dash uppercase D for dev dependency, and we are going to say nodemon. So once every dependency is installed, now let's close the terminal, let's close the package.json file. Now we can add the environment variables. So what you can do is you can just go ahead and create a .env file, and then basically you have to store your environment variables which you want to hide from everyone right in this file. So I'm going to say first of all bot underscore token, and you have to name it with full uppercase. So bot underscore token is going to equal to something. So on the Discord developer portal, as you can see, when we create our bot, you'll get this token, and I'll not reveal this token. Basically you can copy this token and then you can regenerate it if it gets leaked by some reason. So I'm going to copy this because this is the token that you have to hide, because if it's out there, anyone can use it and then they can do crazy things out of it. So in the bot token, you can paste in this token right over here, and I'll do that and I'll be right back. So I have pasted the bot token in the .env file, and you can do the same thing. It's very simple. We install the .env package right over here to get the environment variables. So now that everything is done, let's go ahead and invite the bot onto our application. Now let's go ahead and invite this bot onto our server. So what you can do is you can just go to OAuth2 tab right over here, and you've got everything set up. So OAuth2 URL generator is the thing we'll need. So so what you can do is you can just go ahead and select it's a bot. First things first, it's a bot. And second thing is we are going to use /commands. So for that, you will also need to enable the applications.commands scope. So this will be the URL, and you have to also add the permissions. So the permissions we will have is use /commands, and let's go ahead and add send messages, read message history, and I think that's it. So these three permissions are all we need. Now once all that is done, let's copy this link right over here and let's go ahead and invite this bot. So you can open that link in a new tab. Now as you can see, you can select a server which is bot or any server you want. I'm going to select the testing bots server and continue, and you can recheck these right over here and then authorize, and then you've got this security check. So let's say I am human, and that's it. So the bot is now authorized. Now if I were to go to my Discord, as you can see, the number fact bot hopped into the server, and that's it. The number fact bot is right over here. Now let's start coding the bot so that we can connect to the bot and we can work with the bot. So the first thing we'll need is, let's import the Discord. So I'm going to say Discord.js from Discord.js, and let's also import the .env from .env. Now let's first of all say .env.config, because this is what we'll need so that it will load our environment variables, and then we can use it in our Node.js, in our JavaScript file. So once we have called the config, and the next thing is, now we can use this default import from Discord.js, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to import client. Now client is a class which we can use to create a new client instance, so basically a new bot instance from this class. So what I can do is I can just say const client is equal to new client. Now right over here you have to pass in these options. So the options are intents. So this is the only option you'll need, and intents is an array of intents. Now if you don't know what are intents, basically intents are the way you interact with the bot in the application right over here in the JavaScript. So you have to pass in these intents, and then Discord.js will handle what all you can do from this code right over here. So you can just pass in what I pass in right over here. You can pass in the strings, or there is another way of importing the intents constant and then doing all that, but we're going to pass strings. So we have guilds first of all. Then guilds basically mean the server. Then we have guilds. The first thing we have is guilds. Then we have guild underscore messages, and that's all we need right over here in the intents. So this is our client created. If you want to format it more, we can do so like this. Okay, and that's it. So we have our client created. Now we have to log in the client. So what you can do is you can just say client.login, and right over here you have to pass in the token. So the token is what the bot token we created in our environment variables. So what you can do is you can just pass in process.env.bot underscore token. So basically our environment variables live in the process.env and then bot token, and that's it. Now our bot will be logged in. Now what we can do is we can just go ahead and check. So client.on, we have the event ready. So when our client is ready, we have, so when the client is ready, what we can do is we can console.log. we have template strings, so we're gonna say, we can just pass in the dynamic string, and we're gonna say client.user.tag, and then we can add is ready, and that's it. So client.user.tag is ready. Now what we can do is we can just run the app using npm run dep. This is the script we created in package.json. So let's hit enter, and it will run nodemon. It will start the index.js file, and it's going to take some time. And as you can see, number fact bot is ready. So let's go ahead and visit Discord. As you can see, the bot is now online. It wasn't offline. It wasn't online before. Now once the bot is online, we can interact with it very easily. So now let's create a simple slash command, and that's going to be very simple. It's going to be a bare bones slash command, which is basically a ping pong example, if you know. So in the ready event itself, when the client is ready, we are going to create a slash command. Now there are two types of slash commands. The first one is scoped to the guild itself, that means it's only for the particular server, and the second one is global, so it's for all servers like the whole Discord. And if you choose the global one, it's going to take up to an hour to basically set up, because it's going to add the command to every server. And so as a result, we are going to be using the guild based command. So for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to be using the guild, which is basically the server right over here. I'm going to be using the term guild for this one. So this server only, so the command is going to work only for this server. So what you can do is you can just go ahead and say const guild id. Basically here is where we are going to store the id of the guild. So you can just go on to Discord and you can right click and copy id for this this guild right over here. Copy id or whichever server you made. So copy the id and paste the id right inside of this variable. So the variable is created, and then we say const guild is going to be equal to client dot guilds dot cache dot get, and then you have to pass in the guild id. As simple as that. Now here you get the guild. Then let's create the commands. So I'm going to say let commands, and now this variable is going to hold all the commands. Now this variable is going to hold how you manage the commands. So we have let commands, it's going to be undefined to start with. Now we're going to make an if check. So if guild exists, so basically if this variable guild is not undefined, that means if we don't have the guild id, that means the guild is not undefined. So if the guild is not undefined, then we basically say commands is equal to guild dot commands. Then we can add an else check. So else, if it is undefined, then we're gonna set the commands variable to client dot application dot commands. Okay, so basically we are setting client dot application dot commands if, so basically we are setting global commands if the guild is undefined. So basically if the guild id is wrong or if the guild id does not exist, that means we're gonna set the command, we're gonna set it to global commands. So either way it's gonna work. Then we're gonna go ahead and create a command. So what you can simply do is you can just get the commands variable again, and you can hit the create method on that one. So commands dot create, and then you have to pass in an object inside of that one. First of all, you'll need a name, and the name is going to be fully lowercase. That's one thing you have to remember. So the name should be lowercase. I'm gonna say the name is ping, and then you can add a description if you want. So let's just say description replies with pong. Okay, and then you can add options, and option is going to be an array which basically takes in some options, but we're not gonna go into that. So we have our command created, and the app will restart by itself because we are using node-mon. So as you can see, now the fact bot is ready. Now I'll go into Discord, and now I'll hit slash, and you'll see all the slash commands coming in, and this is the slash command of our bot, slash ping replies with pong. Now if I was to do this and sending command, and it will say this interaction is failed because we don't listen for that command. So let's just go ahead and dismiss this message. Now in our code, we created the command, but we have to listen for the answer of the we have to listen for when a user calls that command. It's like a JavaScript function, and when you call it, you execute some code. So in the same way, we are going to listen for another event right over here, just like we did for the ready event. We're going to listen for another event. So I'm going to say client.on again, and then we can pass in the event. So the event we are going to go for is interaction create. Now this event is simply an event which tells you whenever the user makes an interaction with a bot. So we can just do that, interaction create, and in this callback function you get back an interaction. So basically this interaction can be anything. For the sake of this tutorial we want slash commands, so what I can do is I can just simply check if not interaction dot is command. Now is command is a function which returns to you a boolean if it is a command or not. If it is not a command, we are going to return. So if it is not a slash command, we are simply going to return. Now let's just console.log the interaction now. So I'm gonna console log the interaction whenever it's right over here. So it's gonna show up here in the console. So I'm gonna say slash ping and hit enter, and let's go on to the terminal, and as you can see this is the whole object. But we are not interested in this big object. What we are interested in is one thing, is that the command name. So what I can do is I can just say const something is equal to interaction. Now right over here I'm doing destructuring. If you don't know about destructuring, I've got a video on that, the link will be above. But basically it's just you are sucking out something from an object. So from the interaction object we are getting something out to use it as a separate variable. So I can just say command name, which is basically the command name that the user uses, for example ping or anything. So we have the command name which we're going to be using from the interaction, and then we can just check, we can make an if check. So if the command name is equal to ping, we're going to basically reply it. So we're going to say interaction dot reply, and then we can add the options. So let's just go ahead and add, we can add the content, and we're going to say pong. Simple. So now right over here, if the command name is ping, we're going to reply it with pong. Now let's go over to Discord again, and let's dismiss this message, and let's do slash ping again, and you'll see, oops, so slash ping, and it's going to send command, is going to reply to us with pong. That's how easy it was. So whenever the interaction is created, that replies it with pong. Now we can also make it that it only shows up to the user who used it. So we can make the ephemeral to true, so that basically has enables that the only user who used this command will see the response. So if I was to just say slash ping again, you're going to see pong, and only you can see this message, so no other user can see this. Now let's dismiss this message, and let's delete this one also. Now you have got the gist of these slash commands. So let's create the slash command we want. So right over here I am going to create a command. I'm going to call it fact, because we are going to get the normal fact in the first command. So fact, and then in the description let me just say gives a trivia fact for a number. Okay, and we are going to get some options right over here. So we want some parameters for this function, in simple words. So in the options array you can pass in an object. The first thing you'll need is the name. So for the name we're going to be using number, because we want a number for which we want to fetch a fact. So we want a number, we want a description. So let's just say number for the fact, and then we can add required to true because we need that number. So let's say required true, and then a type, and the type will be number. Okay, so that's it. That's all you will need for the options, and that will enable us to give an option with the command itself. And we have set the required to true, so this cannot be, by any chance it cannot be bypassed. So now we have created this command, and now let's work on the interaction. So when the interaction is created, if we get the command name, and what we can do is we can also get the options from this interaction object. So basically we get access to the options. Now what I can do is I can just say const number. We are going to get number from our options. So I'm going to say const number is equal to options dot get number, you can use this function and you have to pass in the name. So the name is number. Basically this name is what we pass in right over here. You have to remember that. So we have the name, which is number. So now we get back the number, and now let me just go ahead and reply with the number itself. So if the command name is fact, now it's not going to be ping, it's going to be fact. We're going to reply with the content of the number right over here. Okay, and let's hit save. The bot will restart by itself. And now if I was to just go to Discord and let's just go ahead and say /fact, as you can see you have to pass in a number. So let's just say 65, and it's going to send command, it's going to reply to you something, and it says this interaction failed. Now I know why this failed. Now this actually failed because we passed in a number right over here. Now here's a cool thing I want to point out, that most of the JavaScript developers get stuck in these errors because they pass in a number where a string needs to be passed in, and that's where TypeScript comes into picture. So even in JavaScript files you can add types. So if I just do ts check, you will see that we get an error right over here. You have to pass in a number, so you don't get the errors on runtime. So what you can do is you can just convert this number to string. Basically you want to pass in. So let's just go ahead and save, and now it is going to work. So let's dismiss this message and let's say /fact. Okay, and you have to pass in a number. Let's pass 55 now and hit enter. As you can see, we get back 55. Because the content that needs to be sent is that needs to be a string, but it still says but we still pass in a number, that causes problems. So that's why we convert it to a string. So if you just hover over something, you will get the type. So it's a number and content needs to be a string and all that stuff. So now I can remove ts check. Now whenever you get in an unknown error like this one, you can just add the ts check comment up there and then you can check that out. Now once we are done with all of these, let's go ahead and pass in some content. But even before passing the content, let's just go ahead and remove this interaction.reply. We don't want to reply now, we want to fetch the data first. So what we can do is, to fetch the data, we can mark this function as async so that we can use a wait keyword inside of this one. Now we will need one more dependency in our app, which is basically node fetch. So let's just terminate the app. In Node.js, you know, we don't have a native fetch function that we have in browsers. So in Node.js there is a package which you can use, so that is called node fetch. So you can just npm install node fetch, and that will provide you a fetch function which you can use then. So let's just say node fetch, and that's installed. Very straightforward. Now we can just import fetch from node fetch. Okay, as simple as that. Now this function works the same way as the browser. So what we can do is we can just go ahead, let's go ahead and say const response is going to be await fetch. Now I have got a video on fetch API, I'll put the link above. So we're going to go quick. So I hope you know the basics of fetch request. Now we're going to make a request, but even before making the request, we have to go over to Rapid API, and we have to get this link right over here. So let's go into the get trivia fact, because this is what we need right now. So let's copy this link, very straightforward, and let's paste it into the backticks. So I'm using a backticks because we are going to pass in a dynamic number. So let's just pass in the number right between this. Okay, now you fetch data, but the problem is not when you fetch data. The problem is you have to pass in the API keys also. Now you get the API keys right over here. First of all, the host, which is numbersapi.p.rapidapi.com, and the xrapid API key is your API key, which I'm not going to expose mine. So what you can do is right over here in the code snippets, right over here, you can just get these two API keys, these two secrets The first one is not exactly a secret, but the second one is a secret, so you have to hide the second one. So what we can do is we can just go ahead, go to the .env file, and in the .env file itself, so I'm going to say API underscore key, and I'm going to store my API key. So I'm going to copy and paste my API key in this right over here. And once you do the same thing, save the env file, and then let's go back to the code. So I have got the API key set up, and what you have to do is, if you see the example, you've got the headers that you have to pass in. So what we will do is we'll pass in an object after the first parameter in the fetch. So we've got the object. Inside of this object we have to pass in the headers, and in the headers, first things first, x dash rapid API dash host. This is the first thing, and the host is simply this. So let's just copy and paste this same thing right over here. Okay, so we've got the host, and this is not secret, so we can expose it. And then we've got x dash rapid API dash key. Now for the key, we can use the same thing, process.env.api underscore key, and this will give you the API key. And once all that is done, let's go ahead and get out of the fetch, and let's say const data is going to be await response.json, and then in the data, if you just check back in the results, we get back a text. Let's just go ahead and test endpoint for the trivia. So as you can see, we've got the text, we've got the number found true, and we've got type trivia. So what we interested in is the text only. So what we can do is we can just, instead of getting the whole data object, we can get only the text from that object. And once we have the text object, we can simply and easily say interaction dot reply, and we can reply with content. And to be honest, you don't even need the object the options object right over here. You can simply pass in a string. So we can just go ahead and add the text right over here. So that's all we'll need. So once all that is done, our code looks very neat, and we need to start the application. So let's just go ahead and say npm run dev to start the development server. And you get this warning, but it doesn't matter. Let's go over to Discord and let's dismiss this message. Let's go over and say fact, we want a number, so let's say 20, and it's going to send command. It's going to fetch the data, and it says this interaction failed. So we get this error because I forgot one thing. In this URL right over here, you have to add this some parameters. So the first one is JSON equals true, which basically means it is going to return you the JSON data, and secondly, fragment equals true. So remember to add these. So this should be the URL now, and now let's hope it works. So let's dismiss this message. Let's say /fact and 20 and hit enter, and it says sending, and as you can see, then we get the fact. So we have got the fact, and we are using the basic / commands. It's really simple, as you can see. So let's do the same thing for the math command right away. So let's do the same thing for the math command now. That's very simple again. So we're simply going to copy and paste this commands right onto the next line, and I'm gonna add math underscore fact as the command name for this one. And instead of gives a trivia fact, I'm gonna say gives a math fact, and number for the math fact, and let's call it number, the same thing. We're gonna call it the same thing, and the command is done. Now what we can do is you can check for the command name equals math. So let's just copy and paste the whole if block, okay, and paste it. So instead of if, let's just say it's going to be else if now. So else if the command is math underscore fact, if this is the command, the URL is going to change. So the URL is gonna, instead of trivia, we're gonna hold math. Now even in the browser, if you just go to the math tab, you're gonna see /number/math. That's the way it needs to be done. So we have math, and the headers are same, so we don't need to change the headers. We get back the text, and we're going to reply it with the text. So hit save, everything is exactly the same as before. The bot is ready, and let's go ahead and test this out. Let's delete this message and let's say slash math fact, and then you have to pass in a number, so let's pass in 4, and let's see, it fetches the data. It gives you the first positive non-Fibonacci number. You've got a math fact. Simple. Now once we are done with the math fact, let's do the year fact. And you know the process, like you can even do it on yourself. So let's copy and paste it. I'm gonna do it very quickly now. So we're gonna go ahead and replace math with year. I'm gonna replace math with year, and let's go down and let's copy this else if again. Else if the command name is year fact, and we just need to replace math with year. As simple as that. Everything is done. Now when the bot restarts, we can just go ahead and check slash year fact, and let's say 2000, and it sends the command, it fetches the data, and it gives you the fact. As simple as that. Now right now our message looks very straightforward, very simple, and I don't personally like it. And so what we can do is we can format the message a little bit. Now we get back the text, so let's do it for the fact for now. So when we reply it with the text, we don't want to reply it very easily. So what we can simply do is we can just reply it with a back text, and we can pass in the number first of all. So basically the number, and then we add the colon, and then we add the text. So basically it's going to be a number which the user passed in, so number and then a colon and then the fact. What we can do is we can make this a little better. So first of all, let's save this. Let's go ahead and let's say slash fact, and let's say 5. So it's going to give you a fact of 5. So as you can see, 5, the holy number of Discordianism as dictated by law of fives. Now we could use the same thing, but what I personally like is we can add markdown here. So I can just make this text bold using these asterisks. So that's one thing I would like to add. So now let's do this again, slash fact 5 again, and this time we have the text bolded. As simple as that. So let's do the same thing for the others. So let's copy and paste it for the others, and that's it. So it's going to work for the others as well. Now our bot is complete till now, but there is one thing that hits me hard, is that the code duplication. As you can see, this code is very bad. Right over here we fetch the data, and we get the JSON, we get the text, and we reply. And it's the same thing that we do in other commands. So in this command and in this command, the only thing that's different in all of these is this. So we have got year here, we have got math here, and we have got trivia here. Nothing else is different. So what we can do now, okay, if I want to change something in the code, it will take me a lot of time to change it because I have to go through each and every command. So what we can do is we can just go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to call this reply fact.js. Okay, now basically in this file I'm going to export a function that's going to hold the same logic, but we don't have to do code duplication again. We just write it only once. So basically I'm going to say export default. So we've got export default function, and let's call this reply fact itself. Okay, and this function is going to have some arguments, but later on. So let's just go ahead and from any of these if and else if, let's copy the whole logic because it's exactly the same, and we are using await here, so we have to use async. So export default async function. Now we are using the number here, so we need to get the number. So let's copy and paste it, so we get back the number. Whenever we use this function, whenever we call this function, we have to pass in the number, and everything else is the same except for this thing right over here. So this is math, this can be trivia, this can be year. So we can make this dynamic as well by just passing in the type. So this is what we are going to call this type, and let's copy and paste it. So we've got the type now, so we can pass it manually on the reply fact function. Another thing that's missing is the interaction. So interaction is any, as you can see. So we have to pass in the interaction. So let's copy this and paste this. We've got this interaction in our arguments as well. And that's it. That's all we need from this function. Now what we can do is we can just go ahead, go to the top and import this function. So I'm going to import reply fact from /reply fact. Now here's one thing to note: if you're using imports in Node.js, you have to add the extension of .js. Okay, if you're importing from a particular file, you have to add the .js extension, but not in the require format. So we have got reply fact.js. Now you've got this function. Let's do it with fact first of all. So I'm going to go ahead. Now if the command name is fact, let's go ahead and let's get rid of every piece of code right over here, and let's just say reply fact, call this function. We want the number first of all, so let's pass in the number that we get back from the options. Then we want the type, and type is going to be trivia, because that's what we have to pass in the URL. So we've got the type trivia, and then finally the interaction, which is the interaction itself. Hit save and let the bot restart. Number bot is ready. Now let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to delete all messages. So let's say /fact, and we've got, let's say 22, and it's sending the command, and as you can see it says interaction failed. So we got an error that fetch is not defined, and again I want to point out that these errors happen a lot, but it's fine. So basically it's saying that fetch is not defined because we don't have fetch, because we are not importing this. So you have to just basically go ahead and copy and paste the import from node fetch, and that will solve the problem. So now let's go ahead and see the bot is ready. Let's try this out. Fact 22, let's hope it works, and it does. As you can see, the number of players on the field of football, soccer match 22. Simple fact. Now that it's done, we can use this reply fact function everywhere in our code. So let's just go ahead, go down, and as you can see the code reduced a lot. So we can just go ahead, go to this else if, and let's use reply fact. First of all, you have to pass in the number, then you have to pass in the type, which is math. We have to pass in math in the URL, and then the interaction. And let's do the same thing for year, and let me just copy this and paste this. Copy paste, and instead of math we will need year, and that's it. Now one more thing, we are not using fetch, so let's get rid of that. And as you can see, the bot is going to start up again. Now the bot is ready. Let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to say math fact for the number 25, and let's check this out. The smallest square that can be written as a sum of two squares. So we get each and every fact for anything. So let's try year fact for 2020. This is the year of a lot of things. So you've got the Furman belt fixed link in Denmark. So let's do the year fact of 2019, and annular solar eclipse will be visible from South Asia. That's it. Now that everything is done, our bot is done. Now the most exciting part comes in, that how to deploy this bot. Right over here, as you can see, the bot is running locally, and if I was to close the node application, you're going to see the bot will go offline and the commands won't work. So if I was to just say fact 2, for example, it's going to send the command, but the interaction is going to fail because the bot is not working. It cannot fetch, it can do nothing. So how to deploy this bot and make it online 24/7? So now let's deploy this bot to production for free, to let it work 24/7. Now here we'll be using a service called Heroku. Heroku, if you are into Node.js and creating websites, you might know what is Heroku, so I don't need to explain. but Heroku is simply a hosting service which basically lets you host your web server or your web worker or whatever it is. Now here you can easily host your Discord bot for free. So let's start by creating a new application. So I can just click new and create new app. Very simple. Let's just go ahead and app name. So for this one we're gonna say number fact bot. This name must be unique because this is your app name, and maybe it's randomly generated if you don't pass it in. You can choose a region, United States of Europe. I'm gonna choose United States. Let's create app. Okay, then once the app is created, you're gonna be on this screen. Now we are going to push this whole project on GitHub, and then we are gonna do a continuous deployment. So whenever we push again to our repository, it's going to get deployed automatically. So for that we will need to push it to GitHub. And what you can do is very easily inside of VS Code itself, if you press Ctrl+Shift+P, it will bring up the command palette. You can search for publish to GitHub and click it, and then you can select a private or public repository. I'm going to select public repository. So now here's the thing, what should be included in the repository? You have to select that. We don't want node modules, the huge folder, to be on GitHub, and also the .env should not be there. So you can deselect both of these, and .env because we have our API key there. So let's hit OK then. It's going to publish it to GitHub. It's going to also create a .gitignore file which basically holds what should not be pushed. It's going to upload the files, and once it's done, you will see a button called open on GitHub. Let's click that, and that's going to open your GitHub repository, right, like this. Okay, I'm going to add a readme later on, but not now. So now let's work on deploying this. So to deploy it, what you can do is you can just click on this GitHub link and connect to GitHub, and you will see a button to connect to GitHub, and you have to click that because you have to connect Heroku to your GitHub. And then the repo name is what you will need. So for the repo name, I'm going to say the repo name is number fact bot. So let's just say number and search, and you'll see your repository is matching this search. So let's connect to the correct one, and as you can see we have got this. So we can enable automatic deploys from GitHub. So let's enable automatic deploys, and we have to deploy master branch. So let's deploy branch. Now this is going to get deployed very quickly. Now there will be a problem though, which I'll be focusing on right now, which I'll be talking about right now. And it says build succeeded, everything works, but everything won't work as intended. So the bot will not run as you want it to run. So let's go ahead, and you can go to more and view logs, and you'll see an error popping up right over here. As you can see, state changed from starting to crashed, and then crashed to starting, and then it starts the process again, and it crashes again. So the bot is not starting, and the problem is, you remember I told you we need the latest bleeding edge Node.js version, and Heroku by default uses Node.js version 14, which is not what we want because Discord.js, the library which we are using, cannot run on that version. So for that case, what we'll do is in the package.json, it's very simple. You just need to go ahead and add an engines property, and in the engines property you can add node, and then you can specify the version you want. So it's going to be 16.8.0 or let's say 16.9.0, which is the latest version. So you add that, and adding this will force Heroku to install this version of node. So let's just push these changes. So added engine, let's push, let's commit these changes, and let's push them to GitHub. Now once it will be pushed to GitHub, it's going to go ahead and deploy it again. So let's just go to resources, activity, sorry. In the activity tab you will see, so in the activity tab, as you can see, we've got build succeeded, and if you click on view build log, you're gonna see that it uses Node.js version 16.9.0. okay, once we have that, if you go to more view logs, you're gonna see that your bot will be running but it will throw an error, and that is token invalid, because we have to add the token in our environment variable. So what you can do is you can just go to settings. In the settings you can go to config vars or vars, and you have to add the key value pairs. So let's just go ahead, go to our app. So let's go to our code, and here in the .env file I am going to grab the same key value pairs and I'm going to copy and paste them. So if you remember, we have bot token and API key, both of them. So we're going to copy and paste the same key and the same value in those config var. And once you have added that, it will show you a hide button. So I click that hide button. Once all that is done, let's deploy it manually again. So you can just go to deploy and then deploy branch. Now there's one last thing you have to do, is that if you go to the resources tab on your Heroku app, you'll see web npm start. So basically this is to tell that your app is a web application, whilst our app is not a web app, it's a Discord bot. So it needs to run 24/7 and not as a website, not as a web app, or not even as a web server. So Heroku thinks it's a web server, and then it starts it gives us a port, and then it crashes, and the bot gets crashed within a minute, just because it's a web server and Heroku can't handle it unless you create a web server yourself. So for that, the first thing you will need to do is, let's just go ahead and go to activity. And while we were talking, this build is done. Now let's go to more view logs, and you can again see that it's ready. So our bot is running, and if I go to Discord, as you can see, the bot is online. If I even do fact 5, for example, it's going to send the command, it's going to give you the response, but it will fail. And as you can see, it did fail actually. It says stage changed from starting to crashed, process exited with status 137. Now I told you what is that. So for that, what you need to do is that inside of your code, let me just first of all close all files, and then we're going to create one more file, and that is going to be called proc file. Okay, now this proc file is simply a file which Heroku uses, and remember the name should be proc file, so capital P and then everything should be lowercase. Okay, and then you just need to add one line. So you just need to add worker, and then you have to add the command. So which file we want to run? We want to run the node, we want to run the index.js. So what you can do is you can just say node index.js. Now we have to add worker, so remember to add that, and hit save, and then we push this file. So let me just say added proc file, and commit and push. So basically this is what you will need to add. Again, on Heroku dashboard, let's go back to resources, and it will show up the worker. So the worker node index.js, this thing that we added, it will show up right over here below the web npm start. So until it does, let's just go ahead and turn this off. So because we don't want this process to run, we want another process to run. So let's just click on confirm, and so this is off. So our bot is not going to run now, so our bot won't be online. If we refresh onto our repository, you're going to see that we have the proc file, and let's go ahead, go to activity, view build log, and as you can see, we've got proc file, declare types, and you get worker. If you can't see it, I hope now you can. So proc file, declare types, worker. I guess proc file with a capital P, this is what you will need as the perfect name. So let's go back to resources, and as you can see, we got worker node index.js. What you can simply do is just enable this and confirm, and that's it. Now if I go to more view logs, and in the logs, if you see number fact bot is ready, and let's just go to Discord, our bot is ready and it's not going to crash. So let's just say year fact, let's say 2099. Okay, nothing remarkable happened because this year hasn't took place yet. So let's just say math fact, and let's say 2000 or 200. the smallest number which cannot be made prime by changing one of its digits. I hope you liked this video. Please share it with others who want to get into Discord bot development. It's really nice, and I really love the experience of Discord.js. And let me know in the comments below if you want more Discord bot videos, and let me know your ideas on different Discord bots you can build with slash commands and all that stuff. Finally, thanks for watching.